Simon Vouet. De Paris, 1590. De Paris, 1649. In the early 17th century, French art was at a low ebb, as the country recovered from a lengthy civil war. One man was largely responsible for reviving French painting from this period of stagnation, Simon Vouet. He did this not only through his own works, but by training many artists of the next generation, when his country made such giant cultural strides that it began to challenge Italy for leadership in the visual arts. Vouet formed his style during a lengthy stay in Italy from 1613 to 1627. He combined elements from various sources into a suave and vigorous manner. His work sometimes lacks individual personality and rarely shows emotional depth, but it is always dignified, superbly drawn, and beautifully polished in technique. He was versatile and highly professional, carrying out a great variety of work, although most of his major decorative schemes have, unfortunately, been destroyed. Lifeline. 1590 born the son of Parisian painter Laurent Vouet, 1611-12 visits Constantinople, 1613-27 lives in Italy, mainly in Rome, 1624 elected president of the Academy of St. Luke, Rome, a great honor for a non-Italian, 1627 recalled to Paris by King Louis XIII to become his principal painter. 1640-42 his preeminence is threatened when Poussin visits Paris. 1641 paints the Presentation in the Temple. 1649 dies in Paris while still the dominant artist in France. Justice, this formed part of a decorated ceiling on the theme of the four cardinal virtues. C. 1637-38, oil on canvas, 140x159m, Musée National du Château et de Trianons, Versailles, France. The Presentation in the Temple. This altarpiece was commissioned by Cardinal Richelieu for the Jesuit Church, Paris, now St. Paul and St. Louis, 1641. Oil canvas, 393 by 250 centimeters, Louvre, Paris, France. Closer Aycaatey. Serene faces. The faces in this biblical scene have a gentle, poetic serenity and, like the rest of the picture, bask in a warm, glowing light that unifies the whole work. Georges de laTour. BVICSURCL, 1593. De Lunéville, 1653. Georges de laTour enjoyed a successful, although fairly low-key career in his native Lorraine, now part of France, but at this time an independent duchy. After his death, however, his work was virtually forgotten for 250 years, and the process of rediscovery did not begin until the early 20th century. Since then, his reputation has grown enormously, and he is now generally considered the greatest of all Caravaggioesque painters. Like many other artists, he imitated Caravaggio's dramatic use of light and shade, but he looked beyond the obvious trademarks of the master's work to capture something of its grandeur and solemnity, to which he added his own sense of mystery and contemplation. Little is known of his life, and it is uncertain whether he visited Italy and saw Caravaggio's work at first hand or learned about it from intermediaries. Lifeline. 1593 born the son of a baker, 1616 first documentary reference to laTour as an adult. In his earlier unrecorded years he possibly visited Italy. 1617 marries Diane Lenerf, from Lunéville. 1620 moves to Lunéville, where he lives for the rest of his life. 1639 visits Paris and is made a painter to the French king. 1653 dies in Lunéville, and his work slips quickly into obscurity. The Newborn Child. This is the type of painting for which laTour is best known, a serene nocturnal scene with flickering candlelight and simple, monumental shapes. Few of laTour's paintings are dated, and it has proved difficult to establish a chronology, but this is usually considered a late work. C. 1645-50. On canvas, 76 by 91 centimeters, Musée des Beaux-Arts de Rennes, Rennes, France. Closer look. Mystic light. This wonderfully tender and very intimate scene is illuminated by a single candle held in the hand of the woman on the left. But because she shields the candle from the viewer, the light seems to emanate from the baby's head. In this way, what is evidently a scene of human maternity takes on a very spiritual aura, with the baby evoking images of the Christ child. The payment of taxes. It is uncertain if this is a pure genre scene or is meant to represent an incident from the Bible. c. 1620, oil on canvas, 99 x 152 cm, Lviv State Art Gallery, Lviv, Ukraine. Antoine, Louis, and Mathieu LeNain. BLAON, c. 1600, c. 1600, c. 1607. D. Paris, 1648, 1648, 1677. The three LeNain brothers represent one of the great unresolved problems in the history of art, for in spite of much research on their lives and work, there is still uncertainty about what each brother painted individually, and how much they operated as a team. Several paintings are signed with their surname, but none of them with a first name, and all their dated pictures belong to the period 1641 to 48, when all three were still alive. We know from early accounts that the brothers collaborated at times, but there is sufficient variety in subject and treatment among their pictures to suggest that all three had separate artistic personalities. The most distinctive of these pictures, and the main reason for the LeNain's fame, are the peasant scenes, which are strong, sober, and dignified, in spite of their lowly subjects. These paintings have often been attributed to Louis LeNain, but without any solid evidence. Lifeline. c. 1600-07, born into a good family in Lyon, 1628-29, the three brothers moved to Paris, and set up a joint workshop. 1633, Mathieu is made artist to the city of Paris. 1648, all three brothers become founder members of the Académie Royale de Peinture et de Sculpture. 1648, Antoine and Louis die within days of one another, presumably of a contagious disease. 1677, Mathieu dies. The Adoration of the Shepherds, this biblical scene, combines a suitable sense of awe and serenity with vividly observed naturalistic details. c. 1640, oil on canvas, 109 by 139 centimeters, National Gallery, London, UK. Peasant family in an interior. Although it is a scene of everyday life, this picture has the dignity worthy of a grand history painting. In the 19th century, Gustave Courbet and other realist painters found works such as this inspiring. c. 1640, oil on canvas, 113 x 159 centimeters, Louvre, Paris, France. Closer look. A distinct, well-observed light falls on one side of this family's, suggesting a window to their left. The expert handling of light and fairly limited palette helped to create a harmonious and quietly powerful piece. Philippe de Champaigne. B. Brussels, 1602, B. Paris, 1674. Philippe de Champaigne was a distinguished religious painter, but he is famous primarily as the greatest French portraitist of the 17th century. His sitters included some of his leading contemporaries, including most memorably Cardinal Richelieu, of whom he created the definitive images. His work is severely dignified in composition, strong and pure in coloring, and piercingly direct and honest in characterization. In the 1640s he became involved with the Jansenists, an extremely austere Catholic sect, and his work subsequently became even more sober and ascetic in tone, completely unconcerned with normal worldly values. Lifeline. 1602, born in Brussels, 1620 enters workshop of landscape painter Jacques Fouquier, 1621 moves to Paris, 1625 begins working for the royal family, particularly Marie de Médicis, 1629 becomes a French citizen, c. 1635, 42 paints several of portraits of Cardinal Richelieu, 1645 becomes involved with the Jansenists, for whom he paints several works, 1674 dies in Paris. Omer Talon Jalen, a distinguished lawyer and parliamentarian, Ishra depicted in magnificent judicial robes. His candid expression exemplifies Champagne's penetrating characterization. 1649, oil on canvas, 225 x 162 centimeters, National Gallery of Art, Washington, D.C., U.S. Mother Catherine Agnes Arnaud and Sister Catherine de Saint-Suzanne de Champaigne. Champagne's daughter, Wright, was a nun at Port Royal, a Jansenist convent in Paris. This work gives thanks for her miraculous recovery from paralysis. 1662, oil on canvas, 165 by 229 centimeters, Louvre, Paris, France. Nicolas Poussin. BLES Andelys, Normandy, 1594, d. Rome, 1665. Although he spent almost all his mature career in Rome, Poussin is regarded as the most important French painter of the 17th century, exerting a powerful influence not only on his contemporaries, but also on future generations of artists in France. His beginnings, however, were inauspicious, for his achievements were modest when he settled in Rome aged nearly 30, and initially he struggled there before finding his true direction. He was inspired by the art and the classical world to create paintings of great grandeur and lucidity. His work is so deeply pondered that he later became known as the painter-philosopher. This rational approach appealed profoundly in France, and the Académie Royale de Peinture et de Sculpture, founded in Paris in 1648, held up Poussin as the embodiment of its ideals. Poussin worked mainly on modest-sized paintings for private patrons who shared his intellectual tastes. He lived quietly and unpretentiously, but by the time of his death he was internationally famous and revered. Lifeline. 1594, born in Normandy, 1612, inspired to take up painting when an itinerant artist, Quentin Varin, works in his hometown. Soon afterwards, he moves to Paris, 1624, settles in Rome, 1626-28, first conspicuous success with Death of Germanicus painted for Cardinal Francesco Barberini, 1640-42, reluctantly works in Paris for Louis XIV, 1648, paints landscape with the ashes of Phocion, 1665, dies in Rome. The adoration of the golden calf. While Moses was receiving the Ten Commandments, the Israelites made a golden calf and worshipped it as a false god. C. 1633, oil on canvas, 153 by 212 centimeters, National Gallery, London, UK. Closer look. Using color, Poussin uses white to pick out a major figure in the worshipping revelers. This is Aaron, Moses' brother, who was responsible for creating the false idol. Poussin was a master at using color to animate a composition. Landscape with the ashes of Phocion. This is one of a pair of paintings illustrating the story of Athenian general and statesman Phocion, who was executed on unjust charges of treachery. Here his widow gathers his ashes. The somber landscape provides a perfect setting. Poussin became increasingly interested in landscape in the 1640s. 1648, oil on canvas, 117 by 179 centimeters, Walker Art Gallery, Liverpool, UK. Closer look. Setting the scene, the trees at either side act like curtains, an artistic device called coulisses, theater wings, in French. They frame the action, separating the foreground figure from the middle ground activity and background city of Megara, where Phocion's body was cremated because it was refused burial in Athens. Foreground focus. The figure of Phocion's widow is small, but it draws our attention through her light-colored clothing. Her maid looks around apprehensively, fearing they will be discovered preserving the remains of the disgraced politician. The exposition of Moses. Poussin depicts the biblical tale of baby Moses being set adrift on the Nile to escape the order of the Pharaoh of Egypt that all the newborn sons of Israelites should be killed. 1654, oil and canvas, 150x205 cm, Ashmolean, Oxford, UK. In context. The Louvre. This is now one of the world's greatest museums, but in Poussin's time it was a royal palace. Begun in the 1540s by Francis, it was expanded and adorned by many subsequent French monarchs. Louis XIII commissioned Poussin to decorate the immensely long Grande Gallery, but nothing survives of his work there. The Louvre scene from the Pont Neuf, engraving after a work by 19th-century artist Jean-Jacques Atet. Christ and the Adulteress. The frieze-like composition reflects Poussin's study of ancient Roman reliefs. He painted the picture for André Lenotre, famous designer of the gardens at Versailles. 1653, oil on canvas, 121 by 195 centimeters, Louvre, Paris, France. Winter, or the Flood. Poussin's last completed works were a series of 4 paintings on the seasons. In addition to depicting a season, each picture represented a different time of day and an appropriate biblical subject, and each one is dominated by a particular color, here a steely gray. C. 1660-64, oil on canvas, 118 by 160 centimeters, Louvre, Paris, France. Closer look. Composition: the struggling figures fill a foreground triangle, and Poussin leads the eye to the middle ground figure at the waterfall and the streak of lightning in the background. The structure is similar to Tahat in landscape with the ashes of Phocion, but more loosely executed.